Welcome to Marriage with Joy, which is the most open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of living in harmony with matrimony. Marriage with Joy unabashedly discusses the most interesting questions raised by listeners. Our informed and informative panel addresses issues with thought, wit, and aplomb. Voted best of the web 2 years running. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. If you're good-looking, because you're always looking for and finding the good, you found good in abundance because you tuned in consciously and conscientiously to Marriage with Joy. Notice I didn't say Marriage with Joy. Marriage with Joy. And this is, in my humble opinion, and thankfully to the thousands of people who are actually downloading and responding and sharing, going to it's one of the most interesting places on the entire internet that discusses very openly about this remarkably powerful, positive, purposeful, pleasant situation called marriage and the ability to live in harmony and enjoy happiness and love with a chosen person, with a spouse. Now, I espouse, and everybody in the panel does, a marriage between a man and woman. However, we recognize that people have the ability to form marriage-type relationships in other ways. Today, we're going to discuss something that is near and dear to my heart particularly, and certainly, I hope, to our panel, and certainly to the people listening. Last month, if those of you might recall, we worked and discussed the emergence of feminism over the past few decades and how really it made a difference in many millions of people's lives, specifically women, and of course, women affect men, so in everybody's life. We're going to explore today, and maybe even next session as well, one of the more interesting facets of marriage that is under attack. And any time the institution, we'll call it that for the moment, of marriage that is under attack, it means that the culture is under attack. And a lot of that, in my humble opinion, is purposeful from a number of people, both ends of the spectrum in the political arena, the left and the right. However, it is done to undermine what otherwise would be called biblical values when it comes to marriage relationships and the ability for a marriage to have a family. And again, whether the family has 1, 10 more children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews and such. The key right now is that, unfortunately, fathers are under attack. Now, what do I mean by that? 3 data points, and then we're going to make a statement and go to our remarkably gifted panel. Dads are indispensable. Everybody hear that? Mm-hmm. Fathers are indispensable in the lives of children. Again, children, grandchildren, cousins, nieces. The ability to have, for want of a better term, what's called a father figure, a model of what it means to be a man. Now, a man is primarily a person who has accepted responsibility. Matter of fact, DAD, we use as an acronym, duties awaken determination. I didn't even think of doing this, but I will now. So recently there was a great basketball event. The New York Knicks, short for Knickerbockers, the New York Knicks won the trophy for the best basketball team, and the first time they've done that in 50 plus years. Okay, that's a big something, especially for fans of basketball, the New York Knicks. The head of the team, the best scorer, the person who's the captain, his name is Jalen Brunson. Jalen, young man, very poised, very capable, very calm under pressure, is married to a wonderful woman. have a young daughter. And he said specifically that what really shaped his life was not the ability only that his wife had great confidence in him, that he would be NBA material and a great ball player. It's when they had their daughter, who's now I think is 3 years old. Said that is what caused the entire shift in his perspective. And he loved his father. So it's really important for people to understand that a father figure is not just a figure. A father is a model. A father is someone who becomes the anchor, becomes that place of trust that is so often missing in many people's lives. So again, 3 quick data points. One of them is the following. In our besieged country today, the United States of America, the greatest country in God's green earth, to quote this wonderful fellow named Michael Medved, greatest country that has ever existed in the history of the world as a political entity, celebrating, thank God, the next few days, our 250th anniversary of being an independent nation of individuals who are oriented towards values, primarily biblical values. However, the point is that they're values that are derived from the Creator with something in mind. And what is that? To create an ongoing process called marriage, joyfulness, and the ability to pass on values to future generations. We don't live for ourselves in the moment only. It's a mindset. And again, in our very fast-paced and instant gratification world, it's not just an anachronism, it is the root of making sure that you can have a marriage with joy, because when the papa, the dad, has values, mom is attracted to that as well. And together they create a new entity that literally is capable of passing on values. So I want to make mention of one other thing, then turn it over with sort of a question. Here's an interesting data point. At this particular moment in the United States of America, approximately 25% of all households do not have a father present. All households. Not a biological one, not a stepfather, not an adoptive father. That's 18 plus million kids are without the essential, I call it the essential role model of perseverance, of virtue, resilience, and modeling that. Unfortunately, in the Black community, it's a much higher rate. And many reasons can be given. Unfortunately, it's plus minus 50%. So when you have young men, particularly, women also, girls more and more, but young men particularly, without a strong father figure, you will have what is labeled today TM. Now, when I was growing up, TM meant something else. I'll say in a moment. Toxic masculinity. And I will tell you something. I'm a guy. I know about it. Guys are wild. We love it. We're rough. We enjoy it. It's part and parcel of the young stag doing things and, with the antlers down and grappling with stuff called life. However, if you don't have something that enables you to be grounded, that can happen the following. So as I mentioned, this nice fellow, Jalen. Okay, he has a wonderful wife. He has a daughter, and he surrounded himself consciously with people who are offering him advice on his finances and on his direction in life, and all in a positive manner. Unfortunately, too many stories, I won't even mention the name right now, of a talented, young, I think he's 21, 22, football player who now may be going to prison for the next 20 years because he thinks somebody did something wrong to him, and he organized people to go and create a terrible situation to beat somebody up, almost to the point of death. And this person went to a great school. He was in the first round of being chosen, $10 million contract. It doesn't matter if you're not capable of internalizing, utilizing, leveraging the skill set called man. Now, TM, by the way, when I was growing up, until recently, stood for Transcendental Meditation. Welcome, wonderful Lori. Transcendental meditation is a wonderful application of TM. Toxic masculinity isn't. So I'm going to sprinkle a few other things as we go through. So I'm going to put each one of you on the spot and ask you, and on your personal life, Diane, we're going to ask you to lead off as you usually do. Yay! Lead off batter in the upper Northwest. Coming in, Dr. Diane Medved, author, podcaster, raconteur, wonderful wife, married decades to the same man, and with a wonderful family and grandchildren, etc. Can you talk about your father experience? Experience with your father, or is that too personal?
No, proudly. Okay. Okay.
Wax eloquent about your father.
Okay, I will happily and delightfully recall my father, who passed away a number of years ago. But first, a shout out to my son, Danny, who is a single father of 3, ages 9, 7, and 5, doing it all. He called me moments before I came to do this podcast and said, well, I just picked up all the kids from camp, and now they want me to call Mimi. And I'm going, oh, I love to be with them. They're wonderful. But he is a single father who does everything. He gets up in the middle of the night with them. He keeps the house straightened. I don't know how he does. He's amazing keeping a calendar of every moment of each kid. And these kids are busy kids. And he does it all. He does the laundry. He folds the socks. I keep thinking in the back of my mind, he's finally getting payback for all the things he did as a kid. But, he's the best dad ever. And I have to shout out to all the single dads who are not pulling away, who are stepping up, and who are doing what single moms have always done. Now there are more single dads than ever. While there's plenty of single moms, as you mentioned, I think that the definition of fatherhood has changed, and in many cases, in many aspects of it, for the better, because men are now not afraid to take on household chores. They're not afraid to be tender with their children and to sing to them and read stories to them and be close to them in a way that men were not taught to do before. And to segue, my father was of the generation, he was born in 1914, and he grew up in Los Angeles, went to LA high school, met my mom when he was just a kid. She went to Hollywood high school later, but they used to play in yards that were adjacent to each other. And they were married for over 50 years. And this is the thing. If you know that your parents have a solid marriage, what you learn is that marriage can be solid, can be your basis, can be something to trust and to care about. And what I write about is the idea of the family project. And my dad was always present. And he worked hard. He worked for the state of California as a veterans employment representative. He served in World War II. He became a major, and he ran a prisoner of war camp for Italians in Alaska. And he had all these stories about what these Italian prisoners of war used to do. They'd make their own pasta and string them on the rafters. And it was such deep snow that there was no fear that anyone would escape, because the only way to get in or out was dog sled. And I have pictures of him with the dog sleds and the cap. I mean, he served his country well in World War II, and married my mom in 1943. And they lived together. She was, of course, when she was young, it was always taught that it was a man's duty to be able to earn enough money to support a family. And my father worked so hard for the state of California trying to do that, but the expenses kept going up. And then it was to his chagrin and embarrassment that they came to a point where either they sold the house or my mom had to get a part-time job, which she did. And it was different standards for men. I think that, I mean, my dad was the greatest. He very rarely raised his voice. He was the most loving example of a husband to a wife. I mean, he was so caring and so tender and so giving. And it was just my privilege to be able to observe him. And I think that men who are present are the ones that make the difference. They have different styles now. There's different demands. Women are now working. It's de rigueur. It's expected. There's nobody who can afford to live without 2 paychecks. Some people try. And what it means is a diminished standard of living, of physicality, of things that you can buy. Those are honorable choices. But I think the key is to have a father who's there, who's present, who shows love to the mother. That is the greatest gift a father can give to a child, male or female, is to show that a father can love the mother and can together see their children as their greatest joy and privilege. So, I mean, I could go on and on about my dad. He was the greatest. He was bald. He always smiled.
I want to unpack a couple of questions. Again, probing a little bit. You have siblings?
Yes, a brother and a sister. My brother was 18 months younger. My sister was 5 years younger than me.
And would they wax as eloquent as you and say similar?
I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure. I mean, there was nobody who didn't love my dad. As a employment representative in the Hollywood office of the Department of Employment, he got to hobnob with different actors and people who would be out of work in between their jobs. And it was really a fun, exciting place to be then, because Hollywood was Hollywood then.
It was Hollywood then. Okay.
And these people would be in line for unemployment in between their gigs, you know, these famous actors and things. And he became friends with Charlton Heston. Now, I know people now have never heard of him, but he was God.
You mean he became with Moses himself.
But I want to tell how my dad was friends with Charlton Heston. They were on a group that promoted the employment of veterans who had come out of the service. And Charlton Heston would volunteer his time, as my dad did, to work for this organization. There was a Kiwanis Club. There were different clubs at the time. And they all had divisions that helped veterans from World War II be employed. And I mean, now the idea of helping veterans, it's just, nobody expects to go and serve their country. In those days, there were expectations that you would serve your country, just as there were expectations that you would support your family, that you would make enough money to at least have a substance to you. You wouldn't just rely on others' generosity. It was embarrassing in those days to be on the dole. People felt that they had to make their way in the world. And I think that is something that we've lost in a way. There are many people who still retain that, of course. But I think we have to think more on supporting each other, both emotionally and financially, and all the ways that we can be there for our families and our spouses, rather than feeling that the government owes people what they should be living on. I think we need to be self-reliant and rise up and do things that may be uncomfortable, but that need to be done. And I'm honored that my father was always there for me, and just the most loving, wonderful individual. And I miss him all the time.
Thank you much. I want to make mention of something that you did. I'm going to talk about a little later. There's a brilliant essay that I urge people to find. It was written by a woman. Her name is Alex. Her last name is Sasse, Sasse. She's the daughter of former Senator Ben Sasse, who is now dying of pancreatic cancer. And his wife also is suffering from issues relating to mental instability and such like that, which somehow is being managed with medication and such. And in this remarkably powerful essay, and I again urge everybody, please find it, read it, and have tissues handy. You will find that she mentions, as you did just now, Diane, that the greatest gift that she and her sister saw was that, above all else, her father was dedicated first to her mother. That was it. There were many other things mentioned in the essay that he also revolving around the idea, not the idea, the reality of service. So when you mention Kiwanis clubs and things like the Key Club, et cetera, those are service organizations that used to flourish in America. They don't today. Okay. Rotary, Kiwanis, they're still there. They're shells of former self. The point is that in her essay, she doesn't sugarcoat. She says, I was very angry with them sometimes. I didn't like them. I couldn't get a smartphone when I was 12, like all my friends did. And now she recognizes how beneficial that was. And she speaks about the three things that are the inheritance from her father specifically. One of them is relationship with God, unconditional love from the family, and the ability to understand and utilize in one's life perseverance and grit. Again, what I would say are fundamental manly values, except that it's not as common as it once was. Maura, can we invade your private life and ask you to speak about your father? And Lori, you're up next.
All right. Thank you. Oh, you never cease to surprise us, Barry, with the questions. My story, Diane, would probably be different from yours, but this is wonderful in that together we get a chance to create a tapestry so that listeners everywhere can gather something that they can bring home with them and even aspire higher. In my case, what came to mind is this. I had a father and two grandfathers. Father obviously lasting the longest. The two grandfathers I had only as father figures, let's say when I was younger. If you could think of Dick Van Dyke, get the picture? Dick Van Dyke, that was my father. He worked on Wall Street, and I don't mean he was Dick Van Dyke. But if you looked at Dick Van Dyke, you saw the personality, the ability to have fun around other people, the joviality. That was my father. I would say loved by everybody. He was in public service. He was an elected official locally. He was very, very good as a social man. He and my mother stayed together until death did they part. And I'm going to tell you that he was not the strongest man. He was a former Marine, but then again, Marines are never former, once a Marine, always a Marine. But I would say he was not strong. And I say strong as in maturity-wise. He liked to drink a lot. He liked to party a lot. And as a result, there was an inherent weakness, if that makes any sense. But yeah, let me tell you some of the good things about my dad is that many girls in my era, apparently, and prior, grew up with fathers that would always discount them, put them on the side and tell them what they couldn't do. He was never that type. He was always that. I never saw myself as less than because I was a woman or a girl growing up. Never. I was acknowledged for my academic performance, and I was always encouraged to go away to college. They wanted me to be a lawyer. I told you halfway through law school, I thought this is going to be the death of me, and I left. But you can see I was brought up in that kind of an environment. I do credit my father for that. But I will tell you this, and this is where I think it will offer something to people today who, as you mentioned, Barry, I hesitate to ask people about their moms and dads today because you never know. Is it the original? Is it the replacement? Is there anybody home? And in the case of my paternal grandfather, he was an Irishman, worked in New York City. He wore a suit every day. I think he graduated from 8th grade, wore a suit every day. But when he got to work, he would put on a uniform. And he used to manage all the elevators, certain elevators in the high rises in New York. He might have worked at one of the main buildings, but he used to tell everybody he went to the school of Fort Knox. And my memories of him growing up, even though he died when I was around 8, is he was a quiet man. But I would sit beside him when we go up on Sundays to visit. And down in the cellar, he had his workshop because he was an engineering type. And I would just sit beside him, like right here, as he'd be working on something. He'd be the quietest of all, but he wouldn't mind my sitting there and listening. And, I want to say to some people that don't have an official father or don't have a permanent one, that there could be male experiences that you have in life that lends you something of stability, confidence, security. And then the other one I will say was my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who passed away when I was 5.5. I could cry. I could cry because he went away when I was 5.5. That man was the best. He was a grandfather as opposed to a father. He traveled a lot. He was an attorney. He went away very young. But do you know that man visited all the time? He had us always at the house. We did everything with him. He would find little things, big things, ordinary things he was teaching. He was so involved. And imagine that you could have somebody for 5 years as a father figure who never leaves you as an influence. And maybe there are some people that lost their parents, but you don't even have to be a quote unquote traditional or real father to have an unbelievable impact. And I will tell you this, and this I'm making mine shorter than yours, Diane, but I know it's impactful, is that I realized later on in life, I think you all know this. I really was not excited about getting married, wasn't looking for a husband, but I met my husband, Jimmy, when we were just in college. Jimmy had the jovial personality, I'd say, of my father, but he also had and has such a strong sense of character. People will think Jimmy's the nicest guy they've ever met, but you don't try to push him. He's as sensitive as they come, as kind as they come. I sometimes tell him, Jimmy, you are more sensitive than most women. He could think about the nicest things to do for somebody, but don't ever push him because this man is so strong. And I want to tell you, I love him too because he's so strong as a man. He's got the perfect balance. He was a perfect father to our daughter. So there was one other point I wanted to make about fathers. Oh, listen to this. This is the good thing. I always find good. Is that years later, even though I didn't want to get married, I don't know whether we were married 20 years. I thought this is so funny. I think I modeled my marriage or created a marriage after my grandparents. They got along so famously. They were best friends. I can remember my grandfather was fully, a guy, but he used to have this thing in the kitchen. It was a trivet hung on the wall. It said, I'm the boss in this house and I have my wife's permission to say so. And, I would say in our family, with my husband and me, our marriage, we really took from the past, both of us, the good that we had and we built upon it. And I think for anybody who's listening today, nobody comes from a perfect background, but how nice to be able to draw out of things and get the best out of everything. And again, to follow-up, I will just say that the dad who raised me, I give him a lot of credit for never putting me down because I was a woman or expecting less of me because I was just a girl. So my answer.
So, do you have siblings as well?
I do. I am the eldest of three. I have a brother, Diane, you mentioned this, who's now past 17 months younger. Passed away last year. I have another brother who's considerably younger. And we were all brought up very
You
differently.
mentioned this wonderful word that begins with I, impact.
Oh my.
That's really the key element that runs through what we've been discussing so far, is the impact of this unique being that's called a man, a male, and the ability to be a role model for others. Like you said, your grandparents and your father never saw you as a girl any less
Yes.
capable than anybody else. That's a major benefit in life,
Absolutely.
to have somebody that believes in you without having to say, I believe in you. It's because the way they behave, the way they act. Matter of fact, if we make it around this round and come back, I'm going to ask Diane to speak about her father-in-law, who she wrote an essay about, because he was also a remarkable being. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Just first of all, thank you so much, Maura. That was very touching. It's so wonderful to be able to cry.
Especially in front of all the
Good
world.
memory. Good memory. Okay, dear beloved Lori, you're on mute. There we go. Okay, Lori has a different background when it comes to parents. So talk about your father, please.
Did I share this with you?
Well, you mentioned that you're adopted.
Yes, I'm adopted. I was adopted at 3 months, though. So I grew up with the McDermotts.
This is also very important. Being adopted at 3 months means you are as close as humanly possible to the family.
Yep, 100%. So I got very lucky. I got the top pickings. My parents were awesome. My dad was amazing. We would go out to dinner and he would hold my mom's hand and look at my kids, my brother and I, and go, do you see, when you find the person you're going to marry, you're going to hold their hand in public. And then he'd be like, when you find the person you're going to marry, you're never going to run out of things to say. Your mom and I talk all the time. Look at that couple over there. And we'd all look and there'd be a couple sitting there going, I have never forgotten that. So sometimes if my husband and I are sitting there and he's like, I'm like, what are you doing? What do you guys have to say? Like, and he's like, what is wrong with you? We don't always have to be talking. I'm like, yes, we do. Yes, we do. I learned this. My dad was all about, when there's a wedding, you must go. When there's a funeral, you must go. Pack up your stuff. We're going. You don't go to a funeral if for the guy who's dead. You go for all the people that are sitting there going, what do we do now? We're all alone. So that the person who's left behind can turn around at the funeral and see how many people are there at the temple or the church who are there to love them. So I have passed that to my kids who are like, I'm not going to the funeral. Why should I go? I knew the guy that died. I don't know his family. I'm like, you go for the people who are left behind. So I feel like I'm repeating him a lot. So, so my dad died at 57. So when I got married, it was 2 years after he passed. And that was a big deal because everyone's like, just go down by yourself. And I'm like, no, I'm going to choose men to walk down with me. I'm not going to have one. I'm going to have 6. So I chose 3 people didn't even have kids, but they were my dad's friends, my uncle. I chose my birth father. And I chose an uncle friend of my dad who didn't have daughters. So I thought, this is an honor. I know it's just a few seconds down the aisle, but you get to put on a suit and you get to walk with me or a tux. So they were like, this is great. So I took a picture, obviously, of that. And I wrote an article for Bride Magazine and it got published with our picture. Isn't that cute? So I didn't want to just give that. This is an important title and I wanted to share it with a lot of people. My husband said about my life as a child, that's not reality. People are not that happy. No, I had a great childhood. Like, it wasn't like all perfect, but I grew up on a street. There was kids outside. I played in the street till the street light came on. We went on vacations. We were just like normal people. And my parents were just, these are cigarettes. If you want one, you got to stay home. My brother and I tried it. This is alcohol. My dad was like, you try it here. You are not leaving the house. So I never got into alcohol or drinking because of my dad, because he's like, you're welcome to have whatever you want. And so we never thought it was taboo. My brother and I are both the same. He always said to us, I don't want to get old. I don't want to be an old man. And he kind of, won his battle. He died on vacation with my mom, and it's kind of a funny story. She woke up and she said, my husband died, and she called the front desk, and the guy at the front desk said, ma'am, this is a hotel. And she said, I'm in the effing hotel. My husband died. We're up here together. So it was kind of funny, but very sad. It was a very hard time. I believe if someone doesn't have a dad, because I work with a lot of women who might not have good father figures, I'm like, you can adopt a dad. Look in your neighborhood, look around you. Is there someone that is a dad of kids that you know? Like when we first moved to California, didn't have any grandparents here. And so we met a girl who started babysitting for us, and her parents started babysitting for us. And I said, you're my grandparents, not mine, but my kids. So we just adopted them as grandparents. And my kids called them grandpa and grandpa. And to this day, it's so and we're not related. We just decided you're grandparents. And they're like, okay. I'm like, we're not splitting money when you die. I just want you to have the title so my kids have someone to love. And they were all in on it because they didn't have any grandkids. Because I was adopted, I truly believe you choose your family and you get to choose who you want. And if you want to choose, like I have girlfriends that I'm like, you're like my sister, let's just be sisters. And they're like, okay. Like, I really believe that. Like, I truly believe I'm family with people, and they may not think that, but I do. And I don't care what they think. I think they're family. And I think that's important. I learned that from my dad. He always said, and funny, my dad worked as a salesman for years. He sold paper engraving to lawyers in Chicago. And one day I was off school and he goes, you want to go to work with me? And I'm like, sure. Work, right? I was 10, going to work with my dad. We went and visited downtown Chicago, maybe 10 law firms. And my dad would walk in, he would say hi to the front lady, and she'd be like, oh, Peter. And they would talk. And I came home and my mom's like, how was work with dad? And I'm like, he doesn't work. He doesn't work. He just walks in offices and talks to people and they hug him. He's not working. He doesn't work at all. So I honestly had a great life. My dad would sit on the edge of every night every weekend, my parents would go through like their black book and say, what couples do we want to get together with this weekend? And they would map out who's coming over for dinner. And so one day I said to my dad, I'm like, it is not fair that my brother and I have to go upstairs on these weekends when you have people over. What about us? When are we getting invited to dinner? And my dad's like, all right, next Saturday, we'll book you in. So my brother and I got all dressed up, took a bottle of wine. We were like so young, and we went outside the back door, and then we walked around to the front door, rang the bell, and they treated us like we were guests. So that was like, that's the kind of stuff my parents did. Or they sit on the front step and people would walk by and they would, middle of, Chicago, middle class, total boring neighborhood. And they'd be like, hey, how are you? We're Pete and Fran. Come say hi. So we just knew everybody, Catholic families. And it was just fun. I had a great life.
First of all, thank you so much. Your brother is your biological brother?
No, adopted as well.
Adopted, both of you were adopted at the same time?
No, he was born 2 years later. But I have since met my birth family, and I know my birth father. My birth mother passed away after my dad did, and so I know my birth father. He's a very nice man, and I have 5 whole siblings. Not half siblings, but whole, because my birth parents got married after they gave me away. And I love my birth father, but I am so grateful that I was adopted. Even with all those kids, because I had a really good life. And there's not much trauma or drama that happened. And it was simple, but it was, we fought. There was crap that went on. So what's interesting, at my kitchen table with my parents, my brother and I had a voice. So if something happened at school, I was allowed to say what I thought about it. My dad never silenced us. He said, well, what do you think? And so we were able to have thoughts and feelings. And I don't think kids get that today. Like their parents don't have family dinner, or they don't even talk to them. So you ask a kid, what do you think about this? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know. I ask a lot of questions to young kids, and that's the answer I get. I don't know. Well, if you don't know, who's going to know? Right? And so we need to challenge our kids. You don't have to be a dad to do that. You got to be a human to say, what do you think of that? You just saw that. What do you think about that? You saw that fight on a bus between those two strangers. What do you think about that? You don't want that answer. You want an answer. So anyway, I don't know. My dad trained me basically to do what I'm doing today, I think.
I think there was a wonderful line about, it was either your mother or you said, Dad doesn't work. He goes in, he talks to people. That.
Not a job.
Right. It's a very wonderful thing. So when you met your birth father, even that was not traumatic or dramatic. It was just, okay, Dad.
Well, the trauma part was the earthquake in 1994 when I thought I was going to die. I think that was the first trauma I've ever had. I was trapped inside my building. Bottom line, I got out, but I said, I'm finding my birth parents. That was like my mission. And when I wrote a letter to my birth mother, the response I got back was, you're my black hole. I don't want to know you. If you need medical information, that's all I'm giving you. And I was like, oh, she doesn't know me yet. Wait till she meets me. She'll be fine. And I never gave up. I just kept.
That must have been tough.
Honestly, it wasn't, because I think she was afraid that I had a terrible life, and she was worried that I'd want something from her, money, and I didn't. And I knew that she was confused, because, when someone says that they don't want to get to know you and they don't know you, that has nothing to do with you. Right. And that's something I've learned growing up adopted. People think you're weird because you're Jewish. They think you're weird because you're Catholic. It's like, but you don't know me. And so you can't judge me unless you know me. If you know me and you think I'm terrible, well, that's another story. But if you don't even know me, she didn't know me. And so
you think, I'm going to put words in your mouth, but your father, Peter, gave you the power to say what you think. In other words, he asked you, what do you think about that? What a great liberating experience for a kid. What do you think about that? As if you're really a human. You have thoughts. Oh, wonderful. All right, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my father. I'm going to mention first, there was a great American named Mark Twain. I hope most people still have heard of him. If you haven't, look him up. That's not his real name, but Mark Twain is his pen name. And there's a line that I learned, I'm 77 years chronologically. I probably first learned it when I was maybe 20, 23, something like that. So it's a long time ago, more than half a century. So I'm going to just read it to you because it's so beautiful. So Mark Twain wrote, when I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have him around. When I got to be 21, I was astounded at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. In other words, the ability for a young man, a boy, to grow into something called manhood and recognize, like you said nicely, you don't know me. Oh, now that you know me, nice. That's interesting, because fathers embody wisdom. Now, they may not don't have a degree. They embody wisdom, especially when they're doing it for the purpose of saying, I love you, even if they can't say I love you. So my father was not given to gushing and hugging and such, even though he did hug and gush once in a while. He wasn't a hugger or a gusher. He worked very hard, long hours, And I really didn't appreciate the work and the effort that this amazing man put in to making sure that the family had a roof, lived in a very nice place, rented apartment, beautiful rented apartment, food. We were never without. We lived in a very wealthy area, and we were not the wealthiest of all. We were not at all. And yet we never felt like, oh, gee, we have to slink around with poor and such. Because the man worked 2 jobs, 6 days a week. And it didn't hit me until I was probably 40 of the power of what that meant. And I had a model that I could look at and say, if I ever thought I had an issue in life, never had to go through what he did. My father was raised in an orphanage. His father, who I actually met once in my life only, so his father had 5 boys, and it was during the Depression. And my father's mother died. So my grandfather couldn't take care of 5 boys, ranging in age from 2 to I think 8. So he sent 2 of them to an orphanage that we grew up in Boston. Sent 2 of them to an orphanage in Philadelphia, 2 to another orphanage, and 1 he kept at home. And it made a very big difference in my father's life, raised in an orphanage from tender age of 3, 4, and 5 until about the age of 11. Turned out that the woman who ran the orphanage, the Jewish orphanage, the woman who ran the orphanage, ended up marrying my grandfather, my father's father. And apparently she was, ran an orphanage. She was not the kindest person in the world. She was, for my grandfather was okay, for my father was difficult. And he actually ended up being friends with 2 of his brothers, and 2 of his brothers he couldn't even speak to. And here's the amazing thing. One of the brothers, we lived in a place called Brookline, Massachusetts. One of the brothers lived around the corner from us. They would walk on separate sides of the street, and they wouldn't even say hello to each other. My father was embittered as a young man, growing up in an orphanage and estranged from such. That was a difficult part of his life. The good news is, I didn't learn that from him. Sometimes you learn by what you don't want to see. I learned to love. I learned not to exclude people. I did learn hard work. My father taught me one small thing that I'll mention, and then we'll close up this particular session. So I'm a voracious reader, even as a kid. So I'd be, let's say, 9 years old, 10 years old. I'm reading a book that's way beyond me, which is great. And there's a word. I didn't know what it meant. I could read it, I didn't know what it meant. So I looked up, I asked my father, what does this mean? So he said, don't be lazy, go look it up. You hear those words? They never left my mind. Don't be lazy, go look it up. I can tell you something, kids, who I love desperately, the 3 of you. I can't read something today, and I read stuff that's still above my level in some ways, scientific stuff and all kinds of. I don't just reach for the phone and put in the word and look it up. I actually have my father's voice. Hey, don't be lazy, get up. So I get up and I look it up. I can tell you something. That physical act not only helps me because it embeds the information in me. Now I actually did something. I see my father. I'll end up with one small piece here. There's something also I learned when I was in high school. Actually, I learned how to say it in front of an audience. I don't remember it exactly these days. Rudyard Kipling. What a great name, by the way. Rudyard Kipling. Sounds almost made up. So he wrote one of the most interesting, famous poems in the world. It's a 2-letter poem. It's titled If. And if you don't know it, everybody can look it up. Look up Rudyard Kipling, the poem If. And he talked about different situations in a man's life, a young man's life. He says, if you do all these things, then you'll be a man, my son. And I'm telling you, dear beloved friends, it was as if I were reading about my father, what he went through, what he did, what he made sure that no matter what, it was always there. He was there. He died also very young. It was a model of strength, quiet, totally loving of my mother, just almost beyond understanding. He was, I mean, I try to love my wife that way. My wife, one last thing. My wife got a chance to meet both my parents. She liked my mother. She loved my father. And my father loved my wife. And my wife comes completely different culture. She's from Thailand. She's small. She's loving. She's adorable. Fine. They just, what a interesting situation. They just, to this day, she talks about it. Imagine that. And she sees in me what she saw in him. So I am very happy to speak about it. And with your permission, kids, what I'd like to do is consider carrying this on in our next session and talk about dads even more in depth, because there's so much more that needs to be said in our era vis-a-vis men, father figures, modeling, the ability to begin to repair some of what's been torn apart in our culture that, again, is being undermined almost consciously by a lot of people. There's a whole wing of a particular party that really wants to undermine the culture called America based on biblical values. Okay, they're entitled. It's America. We're entitled to not let that happen. And that's really what I wanted to bring out today. And I just want to tell each one of you, first of all, thank you for sharing very intimate things about your father and life and what each of you has accomplished. It's actually, it's really quite wonderful and amazing, because you are, each one of you, such accomplished beings that influence so many others in a positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant way. So total appreciation to each one of you. And I believe that this has been, I hope, helpful to you, certainly helpful to me and the people that follow us. And as I said, thank God, tens of thousands of people are now downloading this and watching it and sharing with other people. You urge everybody, share this with 5 people. You want to share it with 50 or 100, that's great. At least 5 people that you like. Actually, 4 people you like, 1 you don't like. 4 people you like, and 1 person you don't like, say, I'm going to give you something as a gift. And then each one of us will send you links that you can pop on your social media and such. Just urge people. This is a place where we can openly discuss the most fundamental, if not the most important function in our society, which is marriage with joy. So again, thank you so much. Here we are on the eve of going into deep summer, the eve of going into the 250th anniversary coming up July 4th. It's a privilege and an honor to be with you, know you, and share, and a blessing as we do each time we're together. To everybody out there, blessing from each one of us. Go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Thanks, kids. Welcome to Marriage with Joy, which is the most open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of living in harmony with matrimony. Marriage with Joy unabashedly discusses the most interesting questions raised by listeners. Our informed and informative panel addresses issues with thought, wit, and aplomb. Voted best of the web 2 years running.